Hello, everybody. I wanted to touch base with you a little bit today. We have a weekend coming up here as we are getting close to the end of the week. And as we are doing so, I've been engaging with some conversations with people that tend to be more on the personal side. And that personal space can sometimes get a little cloudy as to how we apply professional skills, how we apply some of the things that we gain in the workspace, some of the things that we have expectations of ourselves for professionally. And so one of those conversations kind of prompted the concept of what we are going to be talking about today. And as I have learned to communicate more effectively with individuals on not only what I am trying to bring across to them, but as I am trying to gain from them, and then teaching that in turn to others that are trying to do the same. There's this one word that just keeps coming up, and it kind of has a little bit of a black eye associated with it when it comes to basic conversation. And that word is selling. Now, for some of you, you might be thinking, yeah, I'm good with sales. I do that professionally. And you're very comfortable with that in the space that it normally is spoken of for you. In fact, a lot of people are. Many of us sell things. We sell business to business. We sell a product. We might sell a widget. We might sell a concept. But selling itself is not necessarily so awkward or so unusual. But as we talk sometimes about those personal relationships that we have, or if you're in a supervisory role, someone that has a role within a multi-layered leadership organization where you might have C-suite level individual, mid-level leadership, supervisory roles, direct task workers. As you have those different layers of leadership and you're trying to get everyone to buy into a concept, and I start to teach people about selling, I get some pushback there. And the reason I'm getting pushback there, I would say, is because people don't see those supervisory roles. Excuse me. People don't see those supervisory roles as a sales role. People don't see interpersonal relationships as a sales role. But many of the same concepts that I teach in the sales perspective are the same concepts that we teach from a team engagement, from an effective communication standpoint. The purpose that you have in getting across your point of view for someone else's gain. And we should just lay that out there right now with the assumption that if you're having one of these conversations that we're talking about, it is for the intent of someone else's gain. We'll give you that benefit of the doubt that your ethical boundaries, that your goals in business and your goals as a person are of that to add value to someone else. So we'll just start there. Because as long as that's the case, then your interactions with people really is similar to a sales process. And that makes people a little uncomfortable. I believe that makes people uncomfortable because there's a concept that selling might be that you gain from it. You, as the salesperson, are gaining from it greater advantage than what the individual who is on the receiving end is. But again, from that benefit of the doubt standpoint, our conversations, those supervisory roles, or even selling that widget, we're providing something that that person desires. Will we gain from it? Absolutely. And that's just the process of how it works. Now, I'll give you a very simplistic example. I have 6 children. Yes, that does make life a little interesting, especially once they all arrived home from school. That was very interesting. But I have 6 children. And so a lot of my conversations outside of the workspace involve them. And when I go into my 15-year-old daughter's room in the morning before school, and I see that she is not woken up yet for her alarm, I engage in a sales conversation. Now you might be thinking, no, you're engaging in a mom conversation. No, not so much. I need her to buy into the fact that it's imperative that she gets out of bed right at that point in time. And in my opinion, that's a sell, because I do get something out of it. I get her going to school. That's something that's a gain for me as a mom. And she gets something out of it as well. She gets the gains of what she's going to grow through at school. Now, when I'm speaking with people about more of a professional relationship, but not selling a widget or a product or a service, let's talk about those supervisory roles or even a customer service role. We're selling a concept. We're selling a relationship. We're selling a commitment that one may in turn follow another because they buy into the relationship. Again, we're selling a concept that one might buy into another, into their directives, into the policies, into the standards, into the practices, that one might buy into another because they buy into the relationship. Now, over time, have I had people challenge that from the perspective of they shouldn't have to buy into the relationship? They have XYZ title. They're a widget maker, and this is the widget maker supervisor. And because of all of those titles, all of this simply should be a process. There shouldn't be any selling involved whatsoever. Well, if your goal is to meet the minimum requirements and minimum expectations of productivity and success and significance, absolutely. Then a title-based structure of how those relationships engage, I'm sure would be successful when that is all your goal is. But if your goal is something more, if your goal in your business-to-business goodness sakes, excuse me. If your goal in your business-to-business relationships, if your goal in your client service relationships, if your goal in your supervisory relationships is something more, well, then we do need to talk about selling. Because the engagement of beyond expectations is part of the sell. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about that concept. Why do I want to share about that concept? Because a big buy-in that I have when I engage with people from a training perspective is whether it's necessary to put in the amount of effort that I'm asking them to put in to a conversation, whether it's necessary for them to engage at the higher level of expectation that I have when they're simply having a conversation. And what is the purpose in that? But if I were to tell them, we're selling a widget today, and the end of day outcome for you is if you sell the widget, you succeed, and if you don't succeed, then you know what? They would probably be listening to what selling looks like. They would be listening to what intentional conversation looks like. They would be listening more intently to what it looks like to build a relationship-based exchange, because they're either succeeding or not succeeding based on a sell. But for your company, in your professional organization, and to be honest, guys, even in those personal relationships, if you understand that what you're offering is of value and adds value to the individuals that you're engaging with, and you really do want them to buy in, then your intention and your effort and your focus on that conversation should be just as intentional as if you were selling them the best deal they could ever get. Now, how do you go about all of those intentional details? Well, that's another story. But again, that first buy-in starts with the fact that every conversation you're having, it really is a sell. Now, I'll give you a little quick story on just an example of what that looks like from my perspective. And if you've connected with me in person or along the way professionally, you're going to know that I'm a very direct individual. You would know that I'm not a patient person, and I like to have results right away. That's pretty much who I am. At the core, not going to change, but sometimes I can adjust. So I'd gone into a new company. The company was having some significant challenges, but they had some incredible leaders that had been there over 20 years. And these were leaders that provided good quality service, good quality leadership, and they were people that others were willing to follow. But I can tell you, they did not appreciate me coming in. Within the first couple of weeks, I was able to engage and have conversations with most of them. But there was one, she was a tough cookie. And I was having a hard time. And I was trying my best. I was trying my relationship-based conversations, personal conversations, and doing all of those things that had been successful with everyone else. But the reality was I hadn't been able to get past hello. In fact, every day when I would walk into work, in the mornings, I would inadvertently always see this individual passing in the hallway. And I would say, "Hi, good morning, how are you?" And she would stare at the floor and walk past me. I wasn't selling anything big. I was just selling a hello. But the truth was, I couldn't sell anything big. I couldn't sell to that leader who had been in that company for 20 years and had a great influence on all of those other staff members. I couldn't sell to her the concept that it would be worthwhile to have a conversation with me. And until I could get to that point, my potential of how I could influence the rest of that team was limited. And so from a sales perspective, when you're getting that absolute no, what do? You simply stay present. You continue to engage in a small but casual level, and you wait. And I did that. In fact, I did it for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of good mornings, 6 weeks of floor views, 6 weeks of, I wonder if it'll be today. And you might be thinking, well, you're telling me that you're selling. Yes, I was selling. I needed her to buy into the fact that I could lead the organization. I needed her to buy into the fact that we needed to have a conversation. Not just because she was influential with that team, but because she had ideas that were of value. And so I needed her to buy what I was selling, and that was conversation and leadership. And so from a sales perspective, truly, persistence, but soft, quiet, casual conversation with hope resulted in eventually a good morning. And oh my goodness, I can tell you, it was right around midsummer when it happened. It was pretty amazing. And I mean, I was excited. I went to my office, I closed the door, and I was celebrating because I was so excited that I had finally managed to get that good morning. And even though I'm telling you that these conversations are sells, what I received there was a gift for me, that good morning. But it was one step further in the sell process. And if I had only looked at that from a personal level, if I honestly had even only looked at it from a professional respect level or a title-based leadership level, I wouldn't have had the persistence to pursue that relationship. But she had something of value for the team that I was trying to lead, and I had something of value for the team that she influenced. And by taking that more persistent sales approach, we could both secure the best outcome available. Now, when I'm dealing with supervisors and I'm trying to teach them about this sell that they have for the people that they lead, or even when I'm sometimes dealing with parents and we're talking about open communication in the family setting and how that all works, knowing that there's a process takes the personal out. At the same time, knowing that there's a process and being willing to persist and being willing to be consistent and being willing to pursue allows the personal to come back in. So when I teach and train on every conversation being a sell, the intention isn't necessarily so impersonal as what one would expect. It's actually the outcome that I need people to buy into so that they'll be the most successful they can possibly be in the roles that they choose to take. Now, coming up next month on November 13th, we're actually taking a deeper dive into all of these sales concepts, not just this one, but a couple of others like stories, interview engagements, and building the relationships that you need to succeed. We'll be covering all of those on November 13th at our Live to Lead experience in the Greater Omaha area and virtually online. So I wanted to share a little bit with you today, just to give you a little taste Because the biggest thing that I get back from people, especially those that are leaders or supervisors in a multi-level leadership organization, is that's okay, I'm not in sales. I don't really need that. So the biggest takeaway for you today is to know all of those conversations, every single one, is a sell. It's a value that you're going to add to someone else as soon as they're willing to receive it. So be persistent, keep it professional, and in the end, secure the personal. Take care and lead well.